Happy Friday. Hopefully, everyone had an awesome week. Hopefully, everyone will have an awesome weekend. Don't know what I'm going to be doing this weekend, but it's probably going to be indoors being lazy because it's going to be roughly 3 digits, which means my rear end is staying nice and cool. With that being said, we have a show to do or a podcast, whatever you want to call this. Call this crappy video because it is a crappy video because I make crappy videos proudly. That being said, as crappy as my videos are, at least Joe Biden's presidency is a lot more crappy. His policies are a lot more crappier than mine. But once again, we have a Democrat in the Senate single handedly saving America once again. In case you don't know who that wonderful Democrat is, that is Senator Joe Manchin. That's right. You can read from the title Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia saves United States. Manchin says he won't support a climate tax provision in sweeping Democratic bill. Manchin and Schumer have been negotiating for months, and the West Virginia moderate previous supported having both provisions in the package. He's worried about getting votes. He's worried about getting elected. He doesn't want to go back to his people and say, hey, I raised taxes, but the environment's going to be better, but you're going to have to pay more for groceries. You're going to have to pay more for gas. You're going to have to pay more in school clothing and school supplies this year because the environment's more important. He does not want to send that message to his people, to his constituents. He wants to be able to go back to West Virginia and be like, this is how much money I saved. They wanted to do a bill, another $1 trillion bill, another $5 trillion bill, which would have raised prices for everyone. I don't know what was in the bill. Hopefully, this bill, not this bill, but this wonderful Fox News tells us Senator Joe Manchin and his staff told Senator Majority Chuck Schumer, New York, unequivocally Thursday that he's only willing to support a reconciliation bill in August that includes a provision to lower prescription drug prices and a 2 year extension of subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, according to a Democrat briefed on the conversation. Manchin was explicit that he won't support a bill before midterms with any provision on energy and climate or closing tax loopholes exploited by wealthy and the biggest corporations despite his support for those specific things during the months of negotiation. Democrats have hoped to pass sweeping packages and tout during the midterms. Pretty much they want to bankrupt America. They may not want to bankrupt America, but their policies are going to bankrupt America with higher taxes for everyone, a higher price tag when we go to the grocery stores, higher taxes on gas, just all around inflation. When the time where the country should be lowering taxes, raising interest rates, and stop spending, they want to spend more and more and more and more and more, which the more money they spend, which means the more money gets printed, which means the dollar gets slashed more and more and more, and your purchasing power dwindles. Schumer and Manchin have been negotiating on the package for months, and the West Virginia moderate had previously said that he would be amenable to climate language and tax increases on high earners in a bill roughly half the size of the $2 trillion social and environmental bill Manchin single-handedly killed last December. Of course, he is the one of the few Democrats I do support, mainly because he's trying to put the brakes on his party for spending us into a recession, spending us into a depression. He's probably an old school Democrat where him and Republicans are really aligned. It's just they differ on certain key elements. Political headlines are of no value to the millions of Americans struggling to afford groceries and gas as inflation soars to a 9.1, Manchin spokesperson Sam Ryan said in a statement to Fox News Digital Thursday, Senator Manchin believes that it's time for leaders to put political agendas aside, reevaluate, and adjust the economic realities of the country faces and to avoid taking steps that add fuel to the inflation fire. Manchin demands mean Democrats will probably only be able to produce a far smaller bill that erases the hopes of many in the party to use to fund clean energy incentives that can begin to help curbing global warming. Previously, Democrats have removed other provisions like paid family leave amid negotiation with Manchin. His vote is imperative for Democrats to be able to use the budget reconciliation process for the party line bill, a process that only requires a majority to vote rather than 60 vote for filibuster threshold. Democrats really don't have a slim. There's actually two independents. So it's really 48 Democrats with two independents acting as Democrats with 50 Republicans. Majority in the Senate, including two independents who caucus with the Democrats and Vice President Harris as a tiebreaker. So it's really 48, including the two independents who caucus with the Democrats. But once again, Joe Manchin is stepping up to the plate. He is being the statesman that we all want in Congress to curtail out of control spending. He has single handedly put the brakes on Democrats more times than most people will give him credit for. He is the one that is going to save America between now until 2024, when hopefully we get another president in office that's going to be more of a conservative-esque type politician that is willing to be more pro-American, not American last. We need a president that will do American first. We need a president that's about nationalism and protecting our nation, opposed to American last, what we have now. As much as people don't like Trump, at least his policies were American first policy. Now I do know, watching a few videos on World War II and what led up to World War II, there's some similarities between Trump and a certain German prime minister who later became dictator. There's some similarities, but I don't think Trump is going to be a prime minister, Germany type person turned dictator. But there's a lot of policies that did improve America with cheap gas under $2. That is something that we desperately need. It's pretty funny when Trump left office, the gas started going up, and then this administration blamed everything but their own policies because they can't blame themselves. Because if they blame themselves, they would have to admit that they're wrong. And sometimes being a good leader is admitting when you're wrong. I'm not saying that I would forgive Biden if he admits that he was wrong, but it'd definitely be a step in the right direction. At least Joe Manchin has enough sense to put a pause or put a break on this. That means November, we got to do our part in every state to make sure that the Democrats do not get a supermajority. Because they get a supermajority both in the House and the Senate, United States as we know it will be over. That's right, it'll be over. We'll have inflation up to 20, 30, 50%. Our standard of life will be destroyed. Gas prices will be out of the roof. You think they're terrible now. The Democrats get their supermajority and Biden could just rubber stamp all of his policy. That will destroy America as we are. Now, I don't know what's going to come from the rises. We may come back better ever than before if that were to happen. I don't know. But in the short term, people are going to suffer. Unfortunately, in the short term, people are going to suffer under a Joe Biden presidency. I am just happy I have a job that pays well. But a lot of people are not in my position. A lot of people could barely live paycheck to paycheck before Biden. Before Biden, they were barely living paycheck to paycheck. And what I mean by barely, they may be a couple cents in the red or a couple cents in the green, maybe a dollar in either direction. And now they're relying too much on their credit cards because they gotta feed, they gotta put gas in their tank, they gotta feed their kids, they gotta feed their family, they gotta pay rent. I could go rant on and on and on and on, but I think you get the point. With that being said, leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts about this wonderful Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia? I do have some level of respect for him. He is a politician, so there's a lot of negative respect just for being a politician. But at least he's stepping up being the statesman that we desperately need in the Democratic Party. And I wish more Democrats were like him. But leave a comment down below on what your thoughts on him are. Smash the like and subscribe button on any and all platforms or just the platform that you're currently watching. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful weekend. Go out and enjoy it. If you're not in Texas, hopefully you have some decent temperature within the 70s and 80s that you can spend outside without getting heat stroke. But make sure that you have an awesome weekend.